our moment of silence for COVID-19 victims. That's Councilor Brooks also.
Please join me in a moment of silence to remember those that we've lost and those that are still suffering to COVID-19 and the pandemic. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Brooks. Moving on to announcements, before we get to the big one, I do have a small announcement that's ad hoc. Mr. Brady, happy birthday. Sean Brady, our city attorney, I was informed it's your birthday today.
It is, thank you.
Party, right?
Yeah. Thank you very much. 25.
All right. Happy birthday. All right, moving on to our regular announcements. We have a proclamation declaring the week of April 18th through April 24th, 2021 as Volunteer Appreciation Week in the city of Tualatin, but we have a full recognition event we usually do. And in light of that, is Stacy who's leading this off, and then we have a recognition of all the folks who put lots and lots of hours into making our city a more beautiful and better place.
Yeah, hi. I'm Stacy. I'm the HR director and the volunteer services manager. Thank you to everyone. It's so fun to see everyone's faces pop on and say hello and see all of our volunteers in one space. So thank you so much for being here. I know the mayor has some information that he's going to talk about with regards to what 2020 looked like, how our year went, the number of hours that were presented in addition to doing the proclamation. We probably want to decide who is reading the proclamation. Is there a counselor that...
Councilor Pratt.
Oh, Councilor Pratt's going to be reading it. Perfect. Okay, you guys had already decided that. So then Councilor Pratt will read through the proclamation. And after that, then we have a video to show everybody. That's a recognition video, and we will run through that. And then after that, we'll celebrate all of our amazing volunteers that are here joining us today. And each of you will have a mini spotlight. So give Bates is going to be finding you in Zoom land and trying to highlight you so that we can all see your faces. So please turn your video on so we can see you and wave at you and, you know, just congratulate you as that is happening. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Mayor Bubenick.
Thanks, Stacy. As I mentioned before, things have been quite different for us over the last 12, 13 months with COVID. And 2020, the volunteers really stood up and still remain committed to the city. In the past, we've always had a reception before a city council meeting. We got to meet and greet with our tremendous volunteer corps, share some food, share some drinks and conversation. But with COVID, we couldn't do that this year. So I guess we're going to do it Zoom style. So this year, we're going to be celebrating our stalwart volunteers who stayed engaged, unbelievably, through COVID, and those who came forward to embrace new innovative ways to improve our city. Despite the challenges of COVID, the city of Tualatin still had 500 volunteers donate their time, with approximately 8,400 hours of volunteer time to the city of Tualatin. Volunteers filled over 25 different positions, including new opportunities that allowed volunteers to support library programs from home or enhance our parks and trails by do-it-yourself outdoor volunteering. Our volunteers gave their time, energy, and talents to several projects in our community, including supporting the library's Take and Make program, volunteering to read aloud to friends and family members through the Tween Reader program, and helping the library prepare for its new makerspace by processing withdrawn items for donation. They planted trees, shrubs, and pollinator-friendly plants through the Put Down Roots in Tualatin program as individuals and a part of school and corporate groups. They also volunteered through do-it-yourself opportunities, including litter pickup, park cleanup, and invasive plant species removal. Folks hugged parks, by volunteering at a park or trail to complete a trail building, install mulch, or do some landscape maintenance. In the Juanita Pole Center with special projects like wellness checks, holiday card and wintertime character letter writing, and at the Heritage Center and at the police department. Volunteers during the summer helped out with our Team Tualatin and Summer Team Library programs. Volunteers served on our boards and commissions, foundations, and at the Heritage Center. And Tualatin volunteers proved to be very resilient in 2020, being very adaptive and more generous than we could ever have imagined. Tualatin is a stronger community because of its volunteers and their service, and we are truly grateful for all of your time and talents. Councilor Pratt will now read the proclamation.
Proclamation declaring the week of April 18th through April 24th, 2021 as Volunteer Appreciation Week in the city of Tualatin. Whereas the entire community can inspire, equip, and mobilize people to take action that changes the world, and whereas in 2020, over 500 volunteers contributed near approximately 8,400 hours of their time, an equivalent of about four full-time employees to the betterment of our community. And whereas volunteers give freely of their time, talents, and energy, and ask only for a thank you for their countless hours of service. And whereas it has been longstanding tradition in our community for individuals, families, and local businesses to volunteer to make a difference in our community. And whereas it is fitting to recognize our volunteers for their dedicated service, now therefore be it proclaimed by the City Council of the City of Tualatin, Oregon, that the week of April 18th to 24th, 2021 be proclaimed Volunteer Appreciation Week in the City of Tualatin. The City of Tualatin takes great pleasure in honoring the volunteers of our community and conveying our sincere gratitude and appreciation for their committed, selfless, and compassionate efforts. We celebrate volunteers who lend their time, talent, and voice to make a difference in the community. Introduced and adopted this 12th day of April, 2021.
Thank you, Councilor Pratt. As was mentioned by Stacy, we now have a video that was produced with city staff, council members, and those in the city that work alongside our tremendous volunteers. And this is to show our appreciation. Roll film, please.
I'm Jerry Ann Thompson, Library Director for the City of Tualatin. The past year brought many changes to the way we operate in Tualatin, and that includes how volunteers support our work. With the change in library operations, we developed new opportunities for volunteers to stay engaged and support the library. I'm so proud of all of you who have demonstrated commitment to volunteering for the library and the creative ways you help us provide activities and services for the community. Whether you're a tween reader, part of our craft prep crew, or you supported us in another way, I'm so grateful. Thank you for your generosity.
Thank you, Tualatin volunteers!
Hi volunteers, we at Team Tualatin are so grateful for all of your hard work. What I appreciate most about the 2020 volunteers is that they didn't let a global pandemic get in the way of helping out their community. It was so awesome to see volunteers wearing masks and safely accomplishing important work for our community this summer. I look forward to more hard work from all of you volunteers. Thank you so much. Bye.
Hello, Tualatin volunteers. It's Margaret. I know that we can't say thank you enough for all of the things that you do, but this is Volunteer Appreciation Week, and we are saying thank you to you. Thank you for all of the things that you do to keep our parks and trails and green spaces clean and healthy and vibrant. Thank you for supporting the library in all of the ways that you do, by making take and make projects, by marking out items that are withdrawn, by helping us get ready for the makerspace. You inspire me every day because you help and support and make Tualatin a great place to live, work, play, and volunteer. I know we can't say thank you enough, but I'm going to say it one more time. Thank you, volunteers. We love you.
Volunteers, Parks and Recreation Department here, thank you so much for everything you've done. We truly would not have made it through 2020 without you. Thank you. Thanks.
Hello, amazing volunteers. 2020 was a year like no one has ever experienced. And yet, as doors were closing and people began to quarantine, you, our volunteers, found a way to continue offering your time, your skills, your abilities to the city of Tualatin. Whether it was sewing masks, cleaning up trails, tending to our parks, working on craft take and make projects, you continued to show up and help the city that we know and love stay safe and comfortable for all. Thank you for your time, your energy, and your dedication. You all are superstars.
Hi, we're the Parks Maintenance crew here for the city of Tualatin. We really enjoy working with volunteers on a regular basis in our parks. One of the primary reasons that we like it is that the folks that come out and help us do our work, they really care about what they're doing, and they really care about helping us to maintain and improve our parks. Therefore, we're like-minded because we really care about what we do. So thank you very much for the Tualatin volunteers who come out and help us care for our parks.
I'm Jackie, Volunteer Program Manager with the City of Tualatin. I'd like to say thank you to our outstanding volunteers. It's hard to convey how much I appreciate our volunteers in Tualatin. They do so many things for our community that are easy to see. They care for our restoration sites, they plant trees, they remove invasive plant material from our parks and green spaces, they build trails, they pick up litter, and they help us maintain city assets. There's some other things that bring a lot to the table too that are harder to see, but mean so much to us as city staff. They bring their knowledge, they bring their sense of humor, they bring objective ideas and opinions that help us do our jobs better. They bring creativity, they bring questions, and most importantly, they inspire us through the passion that they have for volunteering and the love and care they give to the community.
Hey everybody! I just want to reach out for a minute and thank our awesome volunteers in the city of Tualatin who have helped the library keep things up and running for this past year.
Hello, wonderful volunteers. Thank you so much for all you've done for us, getting our facility ready for our wonderful makerspace, and for all the joy and happiness you've brought to all our patrons who do nothing but gush about how much they love the take-home crafts. And it's been so wonderful to see a few of you, even just for a second. It's been terrific. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Hey volunteers, thank you for all you've done this past year. We can't wait to see you when we reopen, and thank you so much again.
Hi volunteers, I've got to say that being closed has really highlighted the fact that we completely depend on you to make this library run, and it has been no different during this time. Thank you so much for how much you've done for us, and we look forward to seeing you again when we can have you back.
Thank you, volunteers, for everything you've done during this extraordinary period. It's made a huge impact in keeping the library someplace people want to come and feel connected here. It would have been inconceivable to do this without all your efforts. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, volunteers. We are so appreciative of all the things you do for the library. Even during these crazy times, you're helping out in so many ways. Thank you so much.
Hey, volunteers. It is so good to feel connected with you, even with everything that's going on. Even when we just get to see little snippets of you, but know that you want to stay with us. You're helping out in all kinds of interesting, creative ways, You're helping everybody in the community stay creative with our take and makes, and you're helping us get our library ready for when we've got that makerspace finished, and we can't wait to share our library with you again when we reopen. Thank you so much for sticking with us.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheryl Lombos here saying a ginormous thank you for your service in 2020. It seems like the entire universe was conspiring against us last year, right? But in true fashion, you stepped up and gave back to the community in really meaningful ways. Some of the ones that stand out to me are that you made masks, you put together take-home kits, you planted trees, and many, many other ways you found to be of service. Thank you from the very bottom of my heart for all you did last year for this community.
Thank you. Oh, wow. That was a really good video. Much appreciated. So now it's time to celebrate our outstanding volunteers. This year's recognition process included a review of volunteer hours contributed, in addition to acknowledgement of ways these volunteers helped to shape and elevate our new programs. In short, it wasn't just what they did, but how they did it that that merits special recognition tonight. Each of our winners this evening was presented with a framed certificate and a lovely spring flower basket generously donated by the Garden Corner through a special delivery earlier today. We have several categories, and I want to highlight those folks in each category now. So I'm going to start off with our outstanding youth volunteers. In 2020, we had 4 youth volunteers demonstrate extraordinary commitment to our city and rose to the top of our list. The first is Parker Johnson. Parker Johnson has volunteered in Tualatin since 2017. In 2020, Parker participated in 2 Hug a Park events, completed 4 weeks of Team Tualatin serving in a leadership role, and gave many unrecorded hours cleaning up litter and removing Himalayan blackberry around the city. Parker was one of the first do-it-yourself volunteers and was instrumental in starting the program. Thank you, Parker, for your contribution of 105 hours and pioneering a new way of volunteering in our community. Next is Catherine Kang. Catherine Kang has been a Library Summer Team volunteer since 2017 and joined the Teen Library Committee the same year. Catherine was a pioneer of the craft prep crew and served on Teen Library Committee in 2020, serving over 75 hours in total. Catherine also lent her talents to the making of Volunteer Services' first community outreach video. Catherine is a superstar volunteer. Thank you, Catherine. Next up,
Mayor, I'm unable to find Joaquin Santos. If you could raise your hand.
I saw Joaquin before. He was there. There he is. Hey, Joaquin. Joaquin is in his 5th year of volunteering for the library, and you're only 16. Joaquin's done it all, from tween takeover to summer team leader, Blender Dash, and spruce up the library events. Last year, he turned as a library summer teen and volunteered throughout the year with the craft prep crew, serving 56 hours in 2020. Joaquin's presence at the weekly craft along Zoom meeting is especially appreciated by our librarians, Amy Mutual and Sam Wickstrom. Thank you, Joaquin. And finally, Monique Gibson. Monica, my apologies. Monica served over 50 hours in 2020, which includes her service on the Budget Committee, Teen Library Committee, and as a Library Summer Teen volunteer. Another 5-year veteran of library service, Monica is a voracious reader who began her service in the Tween Takeover program, and she now assists and helps train new tweens as they volunteer in the same program. Thank you for your spirit of service, Monica. All right, so moving on, we then have the outstanding adult volunteers. So one of the challenges of 2020, as we all know, was how to stay connected, stay active, and stay engaged. Tonight, we're celebrating special volunteers who embrace new ways to stay engaged and continue to serve the community. These volunteers came forward and demonstrated extraordinary levels of commitment, ingenuity, and generosity through their service to the city. We first have Hitomi Tamura.
Can Hitori, if you're here, can you raise your hand or wave? I'm not seeing him, Mayor.
All right. Hitomi volunteered for 7 years as a library check-in volunteer before joining the craft prep crew to help to take and make craft activities. Hitomi didn't just prepare the craft activities, her attention to detail and insightful feedback to librarians Sam Wickstrom and Amy Mutual actually elevated the program and made it better for patrons. We are profoundly grateful for her contribution of over 70 volunteer hours, which equals 35 projects. Next up, I saw Don and Linda Gertz. Welcome. Linda Gertz has been volunteering in the Tualatin Library for over 10 years. The library's closure in 2020 meant that many volunteers were furloughed, but Linda found a way to stay active and connected by joining the library's craft prep crew, completing 15 projects. Linda and her husband, Don, joined the Do-It-Yourself Outdoor Volunteer Program and adopted the Little Woodhouse Park, completing invasive removal, trail restoration, and litter removal. Linda and Don tested a new tool to the city, the Extractigator, and proclaimed success. They contributed 63 hours of service to keep this shady nature park healthy, green, and vibrant. Thank you. Next up, we have Kay Kendall. Welcome, Kay. Kay Kendall is something of a library institution unto herself. In pre-COVID times, she made eye-catching library displays, found collectible books, and turned them into valuable revenue for the library. In 2020, Kay took on craft prep projects and helped the library add new items to their collection. Binge bags. As a friend of the library, Kay contributed over 163 hours in 2020. Thank you, Kay, for bringing joy to the community and having the library as one of your passions. We now have Don and Dee Sitko. Welcome. Rain or shine, Don and Dee Sitko have become known as the Blackberry Hunters of Browns Ferry Park. They removed many cubic yards of Himalayan blackberry from the park, leaving giant piles for the city staff to pick up. They freed picnic tables, benches, and art from blackberry and inspired others to serve. Their service became an idea and model for a brand new volunteer program, Do-It-Yourself Volunteering. There are now over 60 DIY volunteers giving their time and stewarding parks and green spaces throughout the city. Thank you both for your contribution of combined 100 hours and pioneering a whole new way of volunteering in our city. And finally, we have Efren Mexicano. Oh boy, and I apologize here. Efren Mexicano and Satalia Mexicano Nogura. I probably killed that, sorry. A father and daughter team stepped up when it became apparent that the community garden at Juergens Park could not be maintained. As do-it-yourselfers and do-it-yourself volunteers, they came forward to plan, plant, and care for many raised beds at the park. Efren and Sitlali weeded and watered daily, June through October. Their service provided a bright spot for the neighborhood and park visitors. Sitlali continued to find other programs in the city to get involved. She gave her time in community engagement, translating and participating in community outreach. Thank you for your combined contribution of over 100 hours and giving a gift of your time, flowers, herbs, and vegetables to the community. Now we have our outstanding volunteer groups. Keeping Tualatin's history alive and maintaining our historical records and photo archives is a labor of love for the members of the Tualatin Historical Society located at the Heritage Center. In 2020, the Historical Society members have built and launched a whole new website featuring increased content, photos, and videos that further the mission of preserving and interpreting the rich history of Tualatin. Additionally, the Historical Society has pivoted to pioneer a new series of virtual events providing educational and entertainment options to the community. Thank you, Mr. President Ross Baker, for 1,500 hours given by your members and yourself, and for giving to the community the gift of preserving Tualatin's history. Next up, with Laura sitting right next to him, is the Friends of the Library. Did you know the Friends of the Library motto is "The show must go on"? Well, it's not, but it should be. After a brief COVID-19 intermission, the Friends, led by President Laura Baker, co-presidents here, the Bakers, developed a safe way to accept book donations from the public, thus keeping a revenue stream open, funded a new program in the library called Tween Readers, and created their Bag of Books program to keep selling and delivering books to our city readers. Working from home, they filled their living rooms with boxes of donations and soldiered on with the businesses supporting the Tualatin Library. Thank you, the Friends of the Tualatin Public Library. Thank you, Laura. Next up, CERT, the Community Emergency Response Team, hey Kathy, and President Kathy Holland have demonstrated extraordinary commitment and initiative to serve the community during challenging times. In the past year, CERT has pioneered new methods to provide opportunities for individuals to make a commitment to the emergency readiness and response in our city. The CERT program has not only achieved growing and training its membership during this global pandemic, but it's also mobilized quickly and effectively in response to our extreme storm event just most recently. CERT team members contributed 1,000 service hours and developed programs to the city for the safety of the community, trained citizens who will help us when our emergency services are not readily available. Thank you, Kathy, and your folks in CERT. So those are the folks and individuals and groups who have been recognized this year, and on behalf of the City Council, city staff, and the entire Tualatin community, I want to thank each and every one of our volunteers for your contributions as superstar volunteers, and I look forward to hopefully next year when we can all meet in person and share a drink and some nibbles and some conversation. Again, thank you to our outstanding volunteers. So I'm waiting for a transition here from Kathy. See Kathy.
While we're waiting for that transition,
there we go.
Is it okay if I also send a huge shout out to my two volunteer coordinators who helped organize this evening's event, in addition to the huge transition that they made this last year and helped make our volunteer program available for all of our volunteers to be here. And I know they're both with us, which is Margaret Gunther and Jackie Conan. Thank you for being two amazing superstars in the city, and helping to recognize our volunteers at every chance possible, and making it look seamless and easy. So thank you.
You're welcome. We love what we do.
Thank you all for everything you do, because without all these volunteer hours and people putting their hard work, sweat, and time into this, the city would be, wouldn't be half as nice as it is now. I mean, because like we said, 4 folks full time, our volunteers fill the positions for, so very much appreciated. All right. So with that,
point of order, anyone, if this is spotlighted for you, you go up to the top right corner of your screen is view, and you'll choose to go back to a gallery view, and you'll be able to see everyone again. Otherwise, you'll only see the ones that are speaking.
All right. All right. So with that, we move on to public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for anyone to address the council regarding an item that is not on tonight's agenda. Please keep your comments to about 3 minutes. If there's anyone here who would like to address the council, this would be the appropriate time. I believe is former Mayor Axelrod in attendance via Zoom or phone or.
He is not, Mayor. He decided to, that he would just like his letter put into public comment with the Stafford. But I believe that there was a proclamation associated with the.
We did.
Oh, we did. Okay, sorry. My bad.
All right. Yeah, Councilor Pratt read it. All right. Is there anyone at the poll center, Bates, or anyone in the Zoom meeting who?
Yes, there is, Mayor. Also, I'm not sure if you want to excuse the volunteers. They don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting if they don't wish to. But
come on, don't you want to hang around for this?
Yeah, I do.
We do have one in Zoom land, Kat Maloney, asked to speak.
All right. Yeah, if you don't want to hang around, go ahead and enjoy your evening. There's still some daylight left. Again, thank you very much for attending tonight and for everything you've done for the city. You're a tremendous resource for the city. All right, so as people, wow, half the population of the meeting is disappearing. All right, so I heard Kat Maloney, you're up.
Hello, everyone. Well, this has been an exciting meeting so far. So I wanted to say thank you as well because I'm new to the city of Tualatin. I just moved here at the end of January, but I've been a volunteer in several environmental nonprofits doing a lot of the invasive pulling, and I know that's a lot of hard work, so you guys do great. And also I use the Washington County Library, and I'm really excited to use the Tualatin Library. So thank you. I also echo everybody's thoughts. Thank you so much. So jumping into, I'll make this pretty quick, but the reason why I'm here is I'd like to appeal to amend an ordinance in the city code to allow dwarf goats as pets. And I'm not sure what the process is to go through an appeal, and I wanted to check with the city council to see who I should be working with and what process I need to go through and who I can share research with and move forward with that. So I'm happy to provide additional information to anybody who's interested, but I just wanted to bring that up and see if that's something that's feasible and if there's somebody I can work with in potentially making that happen.
All right. Have you approached, I know I've seen your email, and as old councilors have.
Yep. I know it was long, so I appreciate it.
No, we saw your email. You work with city staff to see what would need to be done, and then there would have to be a request for us to address this. So the first thing it would be doing a little bit more research and working with staff on what you'd be looking for as far as a change to the code. And then just you bring it back to the city council for, as an ask for us to amend it, and this is your request how to have it amended.
Okay, perfect. And do you know who I should be reaching out to as far as staff for the
Sherilyn?
Yes, we can connect. I understood that was what she was doing today, but I'm happy to talk.
Perfect. That would be great. I'll connect with you. I'll send an email and just see what process I need to go to make it, more formal ask.
Okay. All right.
Mayor, we have one other in Zoom land. Ben has a question.
Go ahead, Ben.
Hi, my name is Ben, and I'd like to ask a question tonight. Do you have any updates on the abandoned RV park Greenway Trail? Like, when will it be finished?
That question, I think it's dependent on the development of the apartments that are supposed to go and replace the RV park. Is Ross still here? You might have a better answer, or someone from the planning committee or planning office. I know it's dependent on that project getting completed before the Greenway Trail could, I'm sorry, the riverfront trail could be expanded.
Yeah, I don't see anybody here who has. Oh, there's Steve.
There's Steve.
I was just listening in, but I'm happy to jump in for a second. That is correct, Mayor, that the development would need to move forward. The plan for the completion of that Greenway Trail was that it was going to be built by the apartment complex. And as of right now, we don't have a completion or start date for the apartment complex, unfortunately.
Right. So Ben, what's gonna happen is what usually happens, the apartment complex would have to be built first. And then once that's done, they would have that space set aside for the city to come in and complete the trail. Because we don't want anybody hurt while they're doing the construction of the apartment. So it'll probably be the last thing that occurs until after the construction's done. We're just awaiting, the request to start building and permitting the apartment complex. So it's probably a few more months out, but feel free to come back and check in.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Anyone else? So we know at the poll center, and that was it.
There is no one at the poll center, Mayor.
All right. Well, with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda are those items that are considered routine. They will be adopted by one motion unless someone on the council would like an item removed and heard separately later tonight. Tonight, the consent agenda consists of 3 items. Item number 1, consideration of approval of the City Council work session and regular meeting minutes of March 22nd, 2021. Item number 2, consideration of approval of a new liquor license application for Dave's Hot Chicken. And finally, item number 3, consideration of resolution number 5536-21, authorizing the city manager to sign an agreement with Tigard Tualatin School District, Washington County, and the City of Tigard related to youth library services. Would anyone on the council like an item removed from consent and heard later tonight? All right, not seeing none. Do I have a motion?
I move to adopt the consent agenda as read. Approve. That.
I have a motion, a second, to approve the consent agenda as read. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Councilor Sacco.
Aye.
Councilor Hilliard.
Aye.
Councilor Pratt.
Aye.
Councilor Brooks.
Aye.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Council President Grimes.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye also. It's unanimous. Moving on to special reports. Item number 1, the Complete Streets Design Update. I believe that's from Washington County, correct? There's Erin. All right. Welcome, Erin. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
I haven't seen you in 7 hours, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here this evening. I believe I'll be sharing my screen for this PowerPoint presentation. My name is Erin Wardell. I am the Principal Transportation Planner for Washington County, and with me is Stacy Shetler, our County Engineer. And we are here tonight to share with you a project we've been working on at Washington County. Am I now screen sharing? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me jump into the presentation. For some background, Washington County's transportation needs have clearly evolved over time. We've become a much more diverse and a much more urban county than we had been previously. And we hear a lot from our community of a desire for streets that reflect different area types and different community needs. So through this project, we are working on updating our road design and construction standards to reflect these different types of communities, and also to consolidate and simplify different design guidance and different policy guidance that we have through different documents around the county, and adopt all of those into our road design and construction standards. And that will make things easier for both the county's capital project designers as well as for developers who are conditioned to build this. So the objectives of this project are to develop roadway design standards that implement our transportation system policies and that reflect multiple land use contexts, again, these different types of communities we have, different road users, evolving community expectations for what our roads should be, our multimodal throughput, meaning we're not just thinking about vehicular access, we're thinking about bicycles and pedestrians as well, and flexibility in design speeds and lane width. This was really important to us and one of the primary objectives for doing the study. So this work really focuses on arterials and collectors that are within the urban and urbanizing areas. So I want to take a minute and define arterials and collectors. Arterials are kind of the major streets that are not freeways. So they tend to be very long roadways, they tend to be wider, oftentimes they have higher speeds, but not necessarily. So when you think about arterials, the Tualatin residents would be most familiar with, you would think about Tualatin-Sherwood Road or Boones Ferry Road, 124th. Those are all examples of arterial roads. And then for collectors, collectors are a step down from that. Collectors tend to link our community areas with our arterial system. And then the arterial system links those areas to the freeway system. And so it's sort of a hierarchy of roadway types. So for this effort, we're thinking about those types of higher classification roads, the arterials and the collectors. And again, focusing on the urban area, not the rural area. So for reference, I wanted to include a map so you know what roads we're talking about. When Washington County updates our road design and construction standards, or I should say what the road design and construction standards apply to, are roads that are under Washington County's jurisdiction. So that means a road that's in the county but outside of a city, and in some cases, roads that do cross into the cities are under Washington County jurisdiction. So this map shows Tualatin's boundary in green, and the roads that you see here in blue are the roads that are under Washington County jurisdiction. So you can see there's a few like Tualatin-Sherwood Road that go through the city, and then there's a number that are around the edge of the city or around the future boundary of Tualatin as it expands. So this is just to orient you to which roads we're talking about. And then the lines in red are roads that are under the Oregon Department of Transportation's jurisdiction. So that's generally the freeways as well as Highway 99. So let me jump into a couple of definitions before we go any further. What are complete streets and why did we call this project the Complete Streets Design Update? So complete streets is a nationally recognized terminology for roadways designed to provide safe, accessible travel for everyone, where all types of travel are equitably supported: vehicles, pedestrians, bicycles, wheelchairs, and public transportation. When we started the project, we just called it the Road Design and Construction Standards Update, and that didn't really get across what we were trying to implement with this work. So then what are the Road Design and Construction Standards? That is the document that establishes the technical engineering, design, and construction requirements for public road and bridge improvements under Washington County's jurisdiction. Tualatin has their own version of this document. And then the Transportation System Plan is an element of the county's comprehensive plan that describes our transportation system and outlines projects, programs, and policies to meet our needs now and in the future. And Tualatin also has their own transportation system plan. The county's transportation system plan and Tualatin's kind of fit together because we're the same community. So Washington County's Transportation System Plan already has a number of policies that outline how we intend to approach building complete streets. So we don't need to adopt new policies into our Transportation System Plan. We already have them there. And we consider this the enabling language that allows us to update our road design and construction standards with this information. So I'm not going to read all of these all the way through, but basically these are talking about building a transportation system that serves a multimodal function. It talks about separating different travel modes and minimizing conflict where possible. They talk about prioritizing complete streets, particularly in areas considered town centers, station communities, and main streets. And then they talk about considering all ages and abilities and travel options when we're planning and designing our transportation system. This next slide is showing a timeline of this project. We've been working on it in earnest since about September of 2019. It's something the county had been meaning to tackle for a number of years. We've been doing targeted stakeholder engagement throughout the entire process. We actually kicked it off with a series of stakeholder interviews. Our primary stakeholders are actually internal staff, as well as the development community, because they're the ones who most frequently use the road standards. But we have a lot of community members who obviously really care about this as well. And so we've been targeting our stakeholder outreach throughout. We started out with an evaluation and assessment phase of the project, and then moved into developing a policy framework and process framework. And now we're at the point where we are developing updated road standard drawings, and we're sharing them around. This shows board adoption occurring in May. I think we're going to push that out a little bit into the summer to allow us to take some more time with the drawings, but we're about on track, I think, to take this back to the Board of Commissioners this summer. So this slide summarizes a little bit more about our community outreach. We have done about 18 presentations since we took this to the board in January, so we've shared this quite a bit. We did do an online open house, and we had about 100 responses to the survey that was embedded in our online open house, which was pretty successful. So we've been sharing it quite a bit over the last few months. So jumping into the proposed updates. The proposed updates are to include an area type for each functional classification, and then within those area types, some of the design details would vary. And those design details that would vary are the bicycle facility options, the sidewalk widths, the design/target speed for the roadway, whether or not on-street parking is an option, and then the lane width. So this slide is showing an example of the town center, Main Street, or station area type, which is one of the area types we're proposing. So these are pedestrian-friendly areas with lots of commercial and residential activity. People are using bicycles, people are on foot, people are using public transportation, and of course, people are coming in by cars as well. So our proposed design update for this area type would be to have more protection for bicyclists and pedestrians, an on-street parking option to reflect the commercial nature of these areas, a lower design target speed, again reflecting the multiple users in this area, and narrower vehicle lanes and medians than our current standard. This graphic is showing the Bethany Town Center, but there's a lot of examples of this type of area type around Washington County. Then our next area type would be other urban. So this is within the urban growth boundary, but it's not an area that we would consider to be a town center type of area. So this is showing the intersection of Murray and Butner. It's a pretty good example of other urban in Washington County. We have a mix of low density single family, campus employment, development. There's a large church and some other large developments in this area and some apartments. So it's a pretty good mix of different land use types. So for these areas, our proposed design updates would include more protection, again, for bicyclists and pedestrians. On-street parking would only be an option for collectors and only if they're in a residential neighborhood. We would still have a lower design target speed than our current standard and the narrower vehicle lanes and median than the current standard, but they would be, at least the median would be a little bit wider than in the town center area, reflecting that a lot of these areas have more freight traffic. And then the third area type would be rural. This is not something that the city of Tualatin has to deal with in their design standards because cities have urban land, but the county has actually mostly rural land. So these are farm and forest lands, small commercial areas, and large lots. We're really restricted by state law on what we can do in the rural areas. So while we know that there are things we can consider doing in the rural area, this particular project is not proposing any updates from our current standard. So this next slide is showing our existing arterial road sections. So when a capital projects manager is designing a roadway project or we have development coming in on an arterial that's under county jurisdiction, this is what they look at when they're trying to build that road. So there's no differentiation by area type. We have a 45-mile-an-hour base design speed, a 6-foot bike lane with no additional protective treatments, a standard 5-foot sidewalk, 12-foot vehicle lanes, a 14-foot median, and on-street parking is not allowed. Now, not every arterial we build in the county looks like this. And actually, in recent years, we have been doing much more with alternative designs, particularly to include that higher level of protection. So the purpose of this work is to institutionalize what we've actually been building. And that's what I'll get into in some of the next slides. So this is an example of what we would be proposing for the update. This is showing two different options for an arterial within a town center, main street, or station area. You can see in the top cross section, it's 5 lanes with no on-street parking, or there could be an option for 3 lanes with the on-street parking. This would have a 30-mile-an-hour design/target speed. There would be a standard buffered 6.5-foot bike lane treatment with optional green paint. And I'm going to talk a little bit about higher levels of protection in a couple of slides. 8-foot sidewalk, reflecting again how many pedestrians we have in these areas. there would actually be a buffer zone for light poles, benches, street furniture, landscaping, stormwater treatment, things like that. The vehicle lane width would be 11 feet and a 13-foot median. And again, there would be that option for on-street parking. So then if we look at the arterial proposed in the other urban area, the cross-section doesn't necessarily look different, but there are a couple of key differences. The design target speed is slightly higher. It's 35 in these areas. The sidewalk is 6 feet instead of 8 feet. And that 14-foot median is just a foot wider, again, to reflect that we may have more freight traffic in these areas. And on-street parking would not be an option, so we're not showing that. So I want to talk a little bit more about what we mean when we're talking about higher levels of protection for bicyclists. One of the important outcomes of this study will be standard drawings for how we provide higher levels of protection where we want to see that. The way this works now is that on the projects that we have, capital projects designers basically look at options that are out there. They look at some of the guidebooks we have and they try to come up with some designs. And so it will make things easier for them to have standard designs adopted into the road design and construction standards that they can pull from that have already been vetted through the community for what they would prefer. So when we did the online open house, we had 8 different options for how to do that. And what I'm showing in this slide are the 4 that really got the most attention, the most preference, I should say, from people who we've been talking to. So in the top left, you're seeing that standard on-street buffered with paint bike lane, and this would probably be what we'll propose as our base standard. And then the other 3 images are all what would higher levels of protection look like. So in the top right, we have plastic, what are called plastic tough curbs, and then flexi posts. And this provides a visual separation. It wouldn't necessarily stop a vehicle that was trying to move into the bike lane, but it provides a visual indicator that cars are not supposed to be there. On the bottom left, there's actual physical barriers. So the first is separating the bike lane from travel lanes with a landscape strip and putting it next to the sidewalk. And then the other option is to elevate the cycle track up to the level of the sidewalk or the landscape strip and have it separated by a mountable curb. So these are some of the options we're considering including. We have some other options as well for things like a multi-use trail adjacent to a roadway, and some other different orientations of these treatments that we'll be thinking about. Parking also gets a little bit tricky if you have parking and bike lanes, and so we're considering how to manage that, and we'll be developing drawings for intersections because it's easy to show these on the straightaway, but it gets tricky when you're trying to move different users through intersections. So we're working on standard drawings for that as well. So what we've heard from this outreach we've done over the last several weeks, summarized here on this slide. The first is, could that town center area type be expanded to include schools? And we thought that was actually really good feedback. Maybe it doesn't need to be as restrictive as town center, station area. Maybe it's just areas that have a lot of pedestrians and bicyclists and cars. And we think about expanding that area type. So that's something we're considering. From our bicycle treatment preferences, it was pretty evenly split into 2 camps. People who are very comfortable riding their bikes, they prefer to have maximum accessibility, they feel comfortable being on the street, they do like the buffer and more space, but they really want to be able to take the lane if they need to or get out of the bike lane if they need to. And then on the other side, people who really like the fully separated paths, this is especially appealing to less confident bicycle riders and people thinking about children. And so really pretty evenly split there. We heard a lot of concern about maintenance and debris with some of the bicycle facilities. Some of the options we showed are a little bit channelized. They look a little bit channelized, and people were concerned that debris would get trapped in there and it wouldn't be maintained very well. So that was something we've talked to maintenance staff about. And then questions about what happens at intersections. As I said, that's something we'll be thinking about in the next phase of this work. And then what about pedestrian crossings? And that's something else that we'll be thinking about in this next phase of work. So with that, I'm landing on questions. So some of the questions we've been asking groups is, do you agree with these selected area types, or do you have more input on that? Do you think that these proposed design updates will achieve project objectives? What do you think about the bicycle protection design options? And are there other groups that we should be engaging with as we are gathering feedback on this project?
Right. So Aaron, could you stop screen sharing and then take questions? We can come back if someone wants to go back to it. So I just want to mention that Aaron gave this presentation a couple of months ago to Washington County Coordinating Committee, and I asked her to do it for us as an education piece, considering development we're looking at here in Tualatin, and she graciously accepted the invitation to spend time with us tonight. So I'm going to open the floor for questions for Aaron. Councilor Pratt.
Yeah, I have two questions and one maybe suggestion. The first one is where you're reducing in the town centers the lane widths to 11 feet. Are there any concerns, like those are usually areas where there's buses and transit. Are there any concerns about the narrow lane widths and issues with that reduced width?
That certainly is something to consider. And so as a part of our engagement, we have reached out to the freight community. We've also talked to our school district transportation providers. So thinking about their buses and then TriMet. So I think what we've heard from those groups is that 11 feet is about as small as they're really comfortable with. When they look at the width of their buses with the mirrors out, they're at about, I think, 10.5 feet. So their drivers really wouldn't want it to be any smaller than 11, but that they feel that 11 is something that they can operate within.
Oh, they must be better drivers than me, but that's okay.
They are the professionals, right?
That's right.
So, I mean, it is hard because I think they would probably prefer, 14 feet, right? Like, give me lots and lots of space to maneuver this large vehicle. But at the same time, in these town centers, we want to make it usable for everyone. So it's a balance. And that's part of slowing the speeds down as well, right? If vehicles aren't moving as quickly, they can navigate the narrower space.
Okay, then my next question is, on the design where you have parking on street and then I think it was 3 lanes, you have the lane and then the bike route and then parking on the other side of the bike. And I didn't know if that had to do with intersections or why you wouldn't put the bike right next to the sidewalk as opposed to having people have to go across the bike lane to park.
I hear what you're saying there. Yes. So what you're talking about is actually something that we've thought about as well for including in our designs. So normally in at least what I've seen in most of Washington County, parking is next to the curb and then the bike lane is next to the travel lane, but you can implement it the other way so that the parking protects the bike lane. So that is something we're thinking about in our standard drawings. So the challenge with that treatment is that if people haven't seen it before and they don't know what to do with it, they sometimes park in the bike lane. And so it's something that we would have to think about enforcement for and signage for, and it would just be a different type of design we'd have to get our community used to. So, but that is an alternative that we have thought about.
Okay. And then my last suggestion was another bike thing, but it sounds like you have 2 camps of people, the people that are not as comfortable riding and then, the kind of more long distance riders. So my general suggestion would be to maybe consider the types of riders you have in certain areas, like in a main street or by a school. You're probably going to have the people that would rather be off the road as opposed to people that are traveling longer distances. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments for Aaron? Wow, really? Okay. Just one comment I have on sidewalk width on arterial other urban is we have a very local senior population in Tualatin, and I have a feeling they'd have an issue with a 6-foot sidewalk. They like wider the better. I mean, if they got there, if ideal world, they would prefer, 8 to 10, even 11 foot width sidewalks. This way, you have traffic going both ways with people, and then, taking into account wheelchair access. So I'm just thinking on the other urban that 6 feet might be a little tight, given folks who with disabilities or wheelchairs, they might feel a little tight in 6 feet.
Thank you. And I think in this past year, right, we've all gotten a little used to taking a little more space when we're walking as well. So I certainly hear that.
Right. And then my second question is, okay, so we are anticipating maybe possibly, having an urban renewal zone in, downtown Tualatin, around the commons and so would these standards be in effect, say the commissioners approve this, how would these standards apply if we were to redevelop downtown Tualatin, if you will, around Tualatin Sherwood Road, starting from I-5, possibly all the way out to say 90th, or maybe, pretty much all Tualatin Sherwood Road, the improvements that the county is making now, but, have those go all the way to I-5 with a revitalized downtown Tualatin. Would these new standards be in effect?
So if the Board of Commissioners takes action and adopts this over the summer, I'm assuming that they would be in effect by the time you start delivering on some of your urban renewal projects down the road. But when we work with a city, things get interesting because the roadway may be under county jurisdiction, but the city, has the underlying land. And so generally, we work really closely with our city partners in that situation when a road is being developed or improved. And we would generally defer to the city's design standards if you want something different outside the curb area than what the county's design drawings are showing. So I think these could provide, in this situation, a really good jumping off point for what would we like this street to look like. But if Tualatin really wanted something different and was prepared to fund that with your urban renewal district, that's a conversation the county is always willing to have with the cities. It is, after all, your land.
Okay. And then finally, I think the latest incarnation of the expansion of Tualatin Sherwood Road between here and Sherwood. I know I've seen some profiles of traffic lanes similar to this, but how close is it to this design standard, the proposed route, the new change, the additional lane that we're going to add to Tualatin Sherwood Road?
If Stacy is here, I'd like to turn that one over to him. So Stacy's our county engineer. I actually think that's a really good example of a project where we've come up with a design that meets community needs that's different from our current adopted standards, and we were able to get there through a design exceptions process. So Stacy, do you want to jump in on that?
Sure, thank you. And Mayor, the design of Tualatin Sherwood Road is very different from the standard in the sense that the bike lane goes up next to the sidewalk and then comes back into the travel lane to go through the intersections. And then I believe the sidewalk itself is wider to be as part of the Ice Age Trail and things like that. And so it does look a lot different than the standard.
Right.
And that's exactly what we'd like to be able to put into the updated standard is a treatment like that we're talking about for Tualatin Sherwood Road.
All right. And finally, I know this is a little deviation here. How's the planning going on the project and where you're at as far as moving towards getting construction going on Tualatin Sherwood Road?
I believe the final design is wrapping up, and so then it'll go out to bid shortly, and then several months down the road, construction will kick off. There's a lot of other work that needs to happen. Utilities need to move, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't have a specific date for you, but I can look that up and get that to you, Mayor.
No, just as long as it's progressing, because you know as well as I do, that's one of the biggest things we hear about is Tualatin Sherwood Road between here and Sherwood and between here and 99W, and people are eagerly awaiting the width expansion of Tualatin Sherwood Road. Okay. Any other questions or comment? Okay, Councilor Hillier and then Councilor Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add that I think however this lands, I love to see the opportunity for added education, both for bicyclists and for drivers as part of however, things move forward in certain areas. I know multiple times I've seen opportunities where both the professional and the amateur bicyclists could use a safety reminder as well as drivers. And so I just thought having that component should be considered.
Thank you.
Councilor Brooks?
I just wanted to say thank you for the work on this because when I think about safety for everybody and accessibility, it is important. So I wanted to say that. And then I also, used to live someplace where the bikes were always off the road. So I'd never seen white crosses and things like that until I moved to Oregon, where there are so many memorials for bicyclists that have been killed. And because we always had the bike paths off the road. So I really appreciate that design standard being considered, especially in areas where we have families and people that are, you know, and just for all of it, you know, for every single type of bicyclist. I just, if somebody doesn't see somebody and they're on even if they're on a motorcycle, they're just at higher risk. So I appreciate the interest in making it safe for everybody and making also more motorists have less regrets about something that might have gone wrong. I just saw somebody swerving in and out of lanes the other day in a very busy road here in Tualatin, and you know, one wrong move or something, and it could have been a really ugly situation. So I really appreciate the work that you guys are doing on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, and finally, I forgot to mention before, I totally agree with the question about keeping bike lanes clean. We've got an issue here where I've heard, you know, several people have asked me about, you know, our bike lanes that we have on our city streets, keeping them clear. And I can see that, you know, it might be even more of a chore if you have physically divided lanes with cones or something like that. You know, how do you run a street sweeper down that to keep those lanes clear? So I'd like to see, you know, that'd be interesting what you come back with as far as keeping those lanes clear. All right. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you again, Aaron and Stacy, for spending your evening with us. Very informative, and we look forward to hearing some more on how the commissioners decide how to progress on this.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. All right. Coming up next is an annual report of the T-Lac, the Tualatin Library Advisory Committee, and I just saw Jerry Ann pop up. Welcome, Jerry Ann.
Hi, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Jerry Ann, the Library Director, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to Nicholas Schiller, who is the Vice Chair of the Tualatin Library Advisory Committee. And if you'll give me just a moment, I'll pull up a presentation here. And hopefully everybody can see that. And Nicholas, when you're ready, take it away.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nicholas Schiller. I've been a member of the Library Advisory Committee for 4 years now, and my wife Natalie and I have been Tualatin residents since 2008. In my day job, I'm a faculty member and a librarian with Washington State University at the Vancouver campus, and I'm very happy to present the annual report for T-Lac to you tonight. The role of the committee is to provide input representing our diverse community to library management. You can see us presented here, Dana and Marcus, Thea, Alan, Kaya, Laura, and myself. Laura left the committee in October of 2020, and Oksana Davletshina joined us in November of 2020 to make up our current membership. We see here are the main roles of the library, and in our report tonight, I want to draw attention to the actions that the committee has taken for each of these roles in the work we've done over the past year. As I'm sure many of you can relate to, the last year was full of a lot of change and challenges for the Tualatin Public Library. We temporarily closed to the public because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the library staff, I should say the heroic library staff, quickly pivoted to offering curbside pickup and holds taken care of at the curbside that way. Library story time and other programming became virtual, including a mix of pre-recorded programs and live programs. The library staff debuted the weekly Take and Make craft bags, which have been very popular. That's a very successful program. And they provided instructions and supplies for hands-on creative activities for people in the community. The Teen Library Committee has continued to be extremely active, and they've met regularly to develop exciting and engaging programs for teens and youth. And throughout the whole year, the advisory committee, T-Lac, was engaged in discussions about library operation during the pandemic and what we needed to do differently that year to better meet the needs of our community. And then additionally in the last year, the committee recommended approval of a revised child safety, children's room, and teen room policies. We have a rota set up that every few years, each of the library's public policies are evaluated, and we look at them to make sure that they're still relevant and they still meet the needs of the community. And other topics we considered included the summer reading program, public art, library facilities, and volunteerism in general. The committee regularly reviews and discusses trends over new ways that the library is utilized. And T-Lac, I mean, we're just proud to support the library's programs and services. We think Tualatin is extremely fortunate to have the people that we do have providing information and literary resources to all of us. Over the last year, we, the committee members, discussed and we made some recommendations to support programs and services that are in alignment with several of the City Council's vision goals. And one very significant project that we supported last year was the Washington County Collaborative Library Services proposal to eliminate overdue fines. So WCCLS is no longer charging overdue fines, and we've also waived existing overdue fines for people who have library accounts. Just by doing this action, access was restored to approximately 850 Tualatin library card holders who previously had blocked accounts, and that increases equity and access to information across the range of our community. And T-Lac was also supportive of the city's plans to build a makerspace within the library. The construction is underway, and it's anticipated to be completed in May. And the makerspace is just going to be a fabulous new gathering space for the community to enjoy. And in a sort of, I don't want to say fortuitous, but I guess this cloud has a silver lining. The fact that the library is currently closed means there's a lot less disruption for library users while the masonry saws are digging channels for conduit and utilities in the floor. So that works out well for us. The T-Lac also received presentations from many of our library partners, and we recommended activities to strengthen these partnerships. People who came to us and talked about their work include the Teen Library Committee, the Parks and Recreation Department, the Tualatin Library Foundation, and the Friends of the Tualatin Library. And it's really fortunate that all of these groups are working together to strengthen the role of the library in improving the quality of life for all of us who live in Tualatin. We also, in one of the roles that the committee takes on is we review complaints and compliments that are brought to the library. And we're happy to say there were no specific complaints regarding policies or materials in 2020. Library users in general have been extremely supportive of the library's virtual programs, and that can be highlighted in some of the photos you see here of the fantastic library staff providing video and virtual service to the community. just the work that they've done during the pandemic, as I mentioned before, it's been really tremendous. And just as an additional reminder, when T-Lac holds the monthly meetings, they're open meetings. So members of the public, and I would say specifically you all, are warmly welcome to come join us and to see what the work of the committee is, and just to witness people talking about the really excellent work that the library is doing here in Tualatin. And I think the last thing that we wanted to say, or the last message that I wanted to bring from the advisory committee to the city council, is that we are very grateful and extremely appreciative of the council's ongoing support for the public library. And if you have any questions, Jerry Ann and I are happy to answer them at this point.
Right. Wait for people to pop back. Thank you, Nicholas and Jerry Ann. Questions for either Nicholas or Jerry Ann? Okay. Councilor Brooks.
I just want to thank you for your commitment of going, and the committee works out. It's just so important, and to be able to hear what's happening. And I can't wait to see the makerspace. So I'm super excited. I know it's been a little bit of a sacrifice for people not to be able to come into the library at this time, but I just can't imagine what it's going to be like, and I'm really excited to see what's going to be happening. So thanks again for all of your dedication.
Well, yeah, I also tag team that with Councilor Brooks. Thank you, Nicholas, and all the folks on the T-Lac. Before I was a city councilor, I was chair of the T-Lac way long ago, and Thea was on it back then. So Thea's been on T-Lac forever, and a longtime member of the T-Lac, and I can't imagine how busy you guys have been during COVID. We were busy in normal operations, reviewing library operations and procedures, and listening to folks with their, like you said, 9 times out of 10, it's terrific comments. But every once in a while, you have someone who's unhappy. But you guys probably have put a lot of extra effort in during COVID, and work with library staff to come with very ingenious answers to COVID, where folks couldn't get in there. You came up along with city staff with some terrific plans. So I just want to thank you and all the members of the T-Lac for that time you're spending. And I do recommend other counselors to attend a T-Lac meeting, because they're, I always enjoyed attending them back in the day, and they're a great group of people who just love the library and want to have the best library in Washington County here in the city of Tualatin. So thank you, Nicholas and Jerry Ann.
Thank you all.
All right. And next up, we have a presentation given by the Hamlet Community Vision Plan. And I see Rich is here, and there's Bill. Welcome, Rich and Bill.
Good evening. How are you all?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. We're waiting.
There we go. Okay, I'm coming through, I assume, just fine for you folks to hear. We are here, that is, we being Rich Fiala and myself, Bill Mart, from the Stafford Hamlet, and we're hoping to share with you the Hamlet's vision this evening. Thanks for this opportunity, by the way. We hope that you can both embrace and facilitate what will be proposed. This is the first of 3 meetings. The 19th and 20th of April, we'll be meeting with Lake Oswego, Westland and Lake Oswego in that order. So you're our maiden voyage. You can go to slide number 2. This is basically an agenda, for lack of a better term. We just put it in your terms. It's a special report. The Stafford Hamlet timeline, which is 3 slides that start in the early 90s and give you some context as to the Hamlet and how we got to where we are. The updated community vision plan, which is pretty key to this whole discussion. And then the three-party IGA amendment request, which is what we're after from you folks tonight, to see some support and some raised hands and happy faces. We'll be supporting facts and data. There'll be review and conclusions, and of course, at the end, there'll be time for questions if you so deem. We're going to go on to slide 3, and Rich is going to take that one.
Okay, so I just want you all to know that we're so well rehearsed, we didn't think about the mic feedback in the same room. So we apologize if that's happening. So again, I'm Richard Fiala. I'm currently the vice chair of the Stafford Hamlet. So we start off back in 1993, and it is a joint statement of position which was created by the Stafford Area Task Force and signed by 9 representatives of our communities. Now, we provided you a complete document of this, but what's very interesting is that we didn't even know this document existed, nor this group existed, until 2 weeks ago. Yet the summary of their conclusions are exactly the same points that we spoke about with many of you over the last few years. And of course, one of the conclusions is planning for agricultural uses and practices, which is very important for us when we get to our community vision plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to try and go through this as quickly as possible for all you folks that have sat down before. So our timeline, 2006, Clackamas County forms the Hamlet. In 2010, the urban reserves were initially designated. Westland and Tualatin later that year contest the metro areas 4A through 4D designation as urban reserves. In 2014, the LCDC remanded those urban reserves designations back to Metro and Clackamas County. In 2015, the Hamlet approves and presents the Stafford Hamlet Compromise and passes it as our original community vision plan. In 2017, the 3 cities, Clackamas County and Metro, unanimously approved the intergovernmental agreement, Stafford Urban Reserves Area, i.e. the 5-party IGA. Next slide, please. So in 2018 and 19, the 3-party IGA is confirmed and signed by the 3 cities. In 2018, that November at Athey Creek Middle School, there was a meeting held where engineers and planners hired by pro-development groups proposed a plan for urbanization of all the areas with infrastructure costs of $2.7 billion and suggests a 60-40 split of the cost of the cities. In 19, the Hamlet starts on the path towards a new community vision plan, and during 19 and 20, the Hamlet representatives met with over 60 elected officials, staff members, candidates, and concerned citizens in over 100 different meetings. In 19 and 20, the Hamlet engages the PSU's Masters of Urban Studies program to work with the board. And the next slide, please.
We were asked by the surrounding cities to identify the Hamlet's, what the Hamlet envisions for our future. And we are here to present our new community vision plan voted on by the Hamlet and approved by 89% of the residents. Our vote also included, and took place at the end of 2020, also included some board members for the Hamlet as well as CPO board. Our revised CVP entailed countless hours of thought and research and does not include a plan for urbanization. Instead, we envision a future that all of the communities can embrace, our community vision plan. Next slide, please. So this is the meat and potatoes of the whole thing right here. The community vision plan embraces Stafford Hamlet's uniqueness in a way that works within the current urban reserves designation while preserving the character of the Hamlet. We will work to encourage conservation partnerships that protect open spaces and forest land, expand and enhance wildlife, and riparian corridors, and explore ways to encourage and promote active agriculture. Our goals will target residents' wishes to enact best practices that safeguard clean air and groundwater, maintain our secure and serene environment, minimize additional traffic and infrastructure impacts, educate regional communities and Hamlet members about the area's heritage, importance, and potential, and expand small farm possibilities. In short, we're going to focus on agriculture and conservation. Next slide.
So here we go. Here is the Stafford Hamlet ask of the three cities, please. That Tualatin, Lake Oswego, and West Lynn adopt an amendment to the three-party IGA, supporting and embracing the Stafford Hamlet's 2021 Community Vision Plan. Your support will allow the Hamlet to realize the potential of the Community Vision Plan as we partner with interested agriculture and conservation-focused entities. Together, we will realize the possibilities of our joint endeavor and energize our communities with this shared vision. Next slide, please. Oh, before you keep the slide there, two things I want to point out. One, we are not asking the cities for any financial burden from them or participation. And to clarify, in this ask, there is nothing to do with any kind of land use decision. So this next slide. You see here a couple quotes from Tim O'Brien, Metro's principal regional planner, and they appeared March 17th in the Westland Tidings of this year. And I quote, "If Metro determined we need to expand the UGB, we want to have local jurisdictions that support that expansion and are able to provide urban services." His second quote is, "Metro administers growth in the region, isn't especially worried about a potential proliferation of easements. The government is more focused on adding housing within the existing boundary than expanding outward." Next slide, please. So fiscal responsibility, something we're all near and dear to, not only personally, but certainly folks in the cities. So in December 10th of 2018 in the Lake Oswego Review, it was covered about that meeting in November of 18. In regards to the Stafford Hamlet, the chief engineering manager at 3J Consulting stated, "This is a project that would take $2.7 billion to complete infrastructure." It was also suggested at that time that the cost be split 60-40 between the developers and the cities, 40% only to the cities. So that adds $1.08 billion, that's a B, by the way, to the already overburdened capital improvements budgets for the three cities. The additional tangential future costs will be on the shoulders of the three cities' residents. Next slide, please.
So now we're to June 2020, and Clackamas County Climate Action Plan has embraced the cities of the county to jointly look at creating their own climate action plan, but also coordinate that with the county. This table you see to the up on the screen there is a piece of that, and it shows Lake Oswego, Tualatin, and West Lynn, and what amount of tonnage, essentially, of CO2, metric tons, are produced annually. The hope is that we can be to you three cities, Tualatin, Lake Oswego, and West Lynn, a partner in the mitigation of some of that carbon that we all produce by keeping our area as actively and biologically as it is currently. Next slide, please. The three pictures on the left are really the essence visually of what we're trying to do here. We're in the process of creating an rural-urban interface through active agriculture. And that plan would use conservation easements, purchase of properties, leases, to secure land and keep it in agriculture and avoid the huge fiscal obstacles that large development to the area would burden the residents with should it become urbanized. A safe, secure, environmentally sound local food source for the region while protecting watersheds, wildlife, and open space for the sustainable lifestyle. Next, please. So this is kind of a review of what you just heard, a little bit of history and the updated community vision plan, which is basically, as I said, agriculture and conservation. some supporting facts and data, the amendment, which is why we're here to encourage you to look at us as a piece of the three-way IGA going forward. We see this proposed amendment as an opportunity for our residents, and we hope you see the same for your citizens. The uniqueness of the area can be retained. With your help, enhanced agriculture to provide a local source of food, a buffer that will help slow climate issues facing us, and providing an area where the three cities residents can embrace nature and an outdoor experience. We are available to answer any questions you may have. As we conclude, Rich and I would both like to thank our Hamlet residents who for years have fought the fight and got us to this point. We would also like to thank you for entertaining us this evening and for your service. Thanks very much.
There we go. Now I unmuted. Thanks, Rich and Bill, for the presentation. I've always appreciated presentations from the Hamlet. Since back when I was first a counselor, the Stafford Hamlet has always kept the Tualatin City Council, very much informed on the desires of how they'd like their area developed or not developed, or how it should proceed in the future. So I very much appreciate the update, and I'm going to open the floor to any questions or comments from counselors for Rich or Bill. All right. I know you've kept them all informed. We're all been informed. You do a terrific job meeting one-on-ones with us. I know you're talking to the other two city councils here coming up next week. I've had initial discussions with Mayor Buck and Mayor Walters about Stafford, and I look forward to more discussions with the three cities, plus the Hamlet. The Hamlet's always going to be at the table in my book when it comes to future plans for the Stafford area.
Greatly appreciate that, Mayor. That's great to hear, and yeah, and it has been great to get to meet all of you, and your patience and time has been appreciated as well. So thanks very much.
Thank you. All right.
So Frank and all the counselors, thank you, Mayor. Again, your time is very valuable, and we appreciate this opportunity to propose this to you, and we'll keep you informed if we can about what's going on in Westland and Lake Oswego on this same proposal.
Yep, I know. Like I said, I'm just going to say, Jules and Joe and I are all talking and keeping each other up to date on things that concern the Hamlets. We're always chatting about you folks.
Well, thank you very much. That makes us feel good because of those 100 meetings. So, all right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. So moving on, we had no items removed from consent tonight. Any city councilor communications for this evening? Okay. Oh, Councilor Pratt.
Oh, I just wanted to make a point for our business community that if you have a business and there's a the Consolidated Appropriations Act, there was a temporary exception for 21 and 22, the full calendar years, that if you have buy meals from restaurants, whether you eat it there or at your place of business or home, if it's a business related thing, that's 100% deductible instead of 50%. So great deduction if you have the opportunity to shop, to buy a meal from one of our local restaurants.
Wow, I didn't know that. Thank you, Councilor Pratt. That's good information to help stimulate a few more business lunches in the community. All right. Anything else? All right. Councilor Hilliard.
Pratt, where would we find that information if we were looking for it, please? Sorry, Mayor.
Oh, no problem.
Ew, it's from the IRS. They did some release guidance. I could forward that to you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I don't speak IRS very well. So
you try not to speak to the IRS. Councilor Brooks.
I just wanted to remind everybody, especially with the presentation, with the Hamlet, that coming up on the 22nd, which is before we meet again, is Earth Day. It'll be the 51st annual celebration of Earth Day. So if there's something that you're thinking about to contribute to do service towards protecting our planet, it's a good opportunity. And also when they shared, it reminded me of just a lot of really great documentaries that are out there right now, and especially around the soil and carbon sequestration. I'm trying to remember. But anyway, I just want to say Happy Earth Day to everybody.
Anything else? Right, and I do want to acknowledge, I think I mentioned briefly with Sherlyn, we did receive the letter from former Mayor Axelrod in regards to the presentation given by the Hamlet, so I just want to let him know, I will email him also, that we did receive his public comment in regard to the Hamlet's presentation and his support of the Hamlet. Anything else? All right, who wants to make a motion for adjournment tonight?
So moved.
Second.
All right, everyone's piling on that one. I have a motion and a second for adjournment. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All right. Have a good evening, everybody. Be safe, and like we said before, keep wearing your mask. Is at the end of the tunnel. Maybe a few more months, and we'll be out of this. Get your shots, please.
Yes. Yeah.